my friend, I have a favor to ask. I'm running as a hero in the 2023 St. Jude Memphis Marathon weekend. St. Jude Heroes are runners who fundraise while they train for their race, and I am proud to be a part of this nationwide alliance against childhood cancer. I want to help make sure that families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so they can focus solely on helping their child live. Your donation, no matter the size, will help. Will you help me reach my fundraising goal? Please visit my fundraising page to show your support at fundraising.stjude.org/go-to/DonitaJ. That's DONITAJ. There's a link in the show notes. I can't thank you enough for helping the kids of St. Jude. In today's episode, we're about to embark on a journey that seamlessly fuses the rhythm of dance with the tenacity of triathlons. Our guest, Liz Hall, has danced through life's challenges only to sprint, cycle, and swim her way to some of the world's toughest finish lines. From battling a traumatic injury that threatened her triathlon dreams to running marathons across multiple states, her story is a symphony of grit, determination, and love for the sport. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a seasoned triathlon enthusiast, or just someone who loves a good story of triumph over adversity, this episode promises a narrative you'll remember. So lace up, dive in, and ride along as we uncover the tale of a dancer turned triathlete. This is an episode of the official Triathlete podcast you won't want to pause. So listen in for episode 45 of the official Triathlete podcast. Hey, my friend. My name is Donita Jacobs. Some people know me as a nurse, a leader, and health expert. Other people know me as a coach, race official, and seasoned triathlete. But at the end of the day, I'm simply a friend with a mission. I want to help you transform your life. My goal isn't to help millions. My goal is to help you. Welcome to the official Triathlete podcast, where you will learn about all things multisport, broken down into bite-sized pieces, and how we can blend life demands with fitness goals. My approach is different because I am blending my 20-plus years of healthcare and athletic experience to help you be the healthiest, happiest, and most balanced athlete you can be. I believe in you, even if you don't. You really can reach those soaring goals, and I'm here to help you get there. I'm so glad you made it here. If you have a question or topic idea, get in touch and let me know. After all, this show is for you. Enjoy! Hello, my friends and fellow athletes. Thanks for tuning in. I'm so grateful that you're here. Before we talk to my friend Liz, I always start with a little message from my Train with Heart program. It's my mission to transform the whole athlete, so Heart not only develops and prepares the body for improved athletic performance, but aims to optimize the whole person through healing, empowerment, awareness, reflection, and transformation. So each episode, I share a little snippet from how I help my athletes with one of these elements. Today, we are going to discuss transformation. You know, every time I sit down with this microphone, I'm reminded of a journey, of the countless roads we choose, the paths we abandon, and the destinations we dream of. Today, let's talk about a journey that is as physical as it is mental, the triathlon. You see, a triathlon isn't just a race. It's an introspective voyage, a mirror reflecting back to us our deepest strengths, glaring weaknesses, and those values that anchor us. Every stroke in the water, every pedal rotation, every step on the pavement is, in essence, a conversation with oneself. Think about the rigorous training, the discipline. It's not merely about physical endurance. No, it's a commitment, a promise to oneself. And within that commitment, there's a goldmine of self-revelation. Imagine waking up at the crack of dawn, plunging into cold water. Your body's initial reaction? Resistance. But then there's this voice, a whisper almost, urging you on, pushing you beyond what you thought was possible. This isn't just about swimming, cycling, or running. This is about meeting parts of you that you never knew existed. Maybe it's the tenacity that emerges when you're gasping for breath during the final leg of the race. Or perhaps it's the vulnerability you feel when you're battling your inner critic, questioning your capabilities. The beauty? It's in those moments of struggle, in the throes of doubt, that we often discover our core values. For some, it might be resilience. For others, it's integrity. Staying true to their training even when no one's watching. And for many, it's love. Love for the sport, love for the community, and most importantly, love for oneself. So to anyone thinking about embarking on the triathlon journey, or any journey for that matter, dive in. Not just to finish the race, but to uncover the stories, the lessons, the truths that lie within. Because in the end, it's not just about the finish line, it's about who you become along the way. Remember, the best journeys answer questions that, in the beginning, we didn't even think to ask. Keep seeking, keep discovering, and most importantly, keep pushing your boundaries. Today, we have a guest whose journey from the dance stage to the triathlon finish line is nothing short of inspirational. Growing up as a competitive dancer and cheerleader, and then transitioning into running and lacrosse during her high school and college years, Liz Hall has always had a flair for physical activity. But it wasn't until 2010, while residing in North Carolina, that she decided to give triathlon a try, inspired by her friends and personal passion for running. A pharmacist by training, Liz has channeled her commitment to health and wellness into her current role as an administrator at a health sciences university. Along her athletic journey, she celebrated numerous accomplishments, not least of which is her recent qualification for the Ironman World Championship. And that's not to forget her impressive marathon PR of 3 hours and 31 minutes, and her ongoing goal to run a marathon in every U.S. state. But life hasn't always been a smooth ride for Liz. In 2016, a training accident involving a dog led to a shattered elbow, requiring 3 surgeries and months of physical therapy. This setback, however, only fueled her resolve, teaching her the values of consistency, strength training, and mental toughness. Today, as an active member of Team Zoot and with the guidance from BPC Coaching, Liz has successfully completed 2 full Ironman races, 4 70.3s, and is running her way through marathons in the U.S., with 20 marathons across 19 states already under her belt. Off the track, Liz finds joy and support from her family, her husband, stepson, stepdaughter, and of course, the cutest Pekingese mix you'd ever come across. So listen in as I talk with this inspiring lady, Liz Hall. Hi, Liz. Welcome to the official Triathlete podcast.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on. I've known you for a long time. We used to be teammates, and we've definitely raced together plenty of times and seen each other out in training and other events. And I have always admired you and thought that you were just a really awesome athlete. So I'm really excited for the opportunity today to chat with you and let my audience get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you again for having me.
All right. So first, I want you to just tell us a little bit about your journey. How did a pharmacist become a 2-time Ironman competitor and now a qualifier for the World Championship? What inspired you to take up triathlons to begin with?
Yeah, so I was a runner really before becoming a triathlete. And I actually did my first marathon while I was in pharmacy school. I had a good friend who worked with kids that did triathlons, and I had mentioned to her, how much I enjoyed running, and if only I could swim. I can do the biking part, I can do the running part, but if only I could swim. And so she actually worked with me and taught me how to properly swim. I could swim to survive, but to actually swim and be able to do more than one lap at a time without being out of breath. And so, anywho, she said, yeah, if I can teach kids to swim, you can definitely do it. So first time in the pool, got down to the, it's 25-yard pool, and I got to the end of the lap. And I remember just like coming up for air and thinking, who on earth swims more than one of these at a time? Like, how does anybody swim more than one lap? So anyway, the rest is kind of history from there. So I got into my first triathlon shortly after that. So that was in, I guess, 2010, before I had finished pharmacy school even. And once I moved to Memphis and got plugged into the triathlon community and the amazing triathlon community that, that we have here, I really took a deep dive, and things, the distances just kept getting longer. And I figured out, the longer they got, the more I enjoyed it, because that meant you didn't have to go as fast. And so anyway, I'd rather, do an all-day pace than have to like sprint something. And so I really, really enjoy the long course triathlon.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Ironman is definitely a long course. So, so throughout your journey, what has been your primary source of motivation, and has it changed over time?
It's definitely changed over time. I think really at the beginning, it was let me see if I can do this. Like, can I even finish a half Ironman? Can I even, well, even before that, can I even finish a sprint triathlon? Can I finish a sprint triathlon that has an open water swim instead of a pool swim? Can I finish an Olympic distance, et cetera, right? And so I kept going. And then um, after doing each distance once, the motivation is kind of like, I wonder what I can improve. Can I do my bike a little faster? Can I swim a little bit faster? And there's just so much in triathlon, so many different factors, so many different elements.
Mhm.
And so for me, I think it's been that challenge against myself, not necessarily the racing of other people's, but just being able to better myself each time I do one. Now, with time, I think I've come to realize how beneficial training and being consistent with training is for
Mm.
my mental health. Especially with regards to the social aspects of training, right? So doing those
Yeah.
group rides, having fun with friends, getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning to run with friends in the dark, right? So all of those aspects really help me from a mental health standpoint too, which obviously that then spills over into all the other aspects of your life. So then I'm a better wife, I'm a better stepmom, I am, more energetic with my dog, so he gets more attention. And so all of those things spill over. And I think that's now really what motivates me a lot in
Mm.
training and doing these races.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. So, but just real quick to go back to that, were you methodical in the way you stepped up your distances? I mean, it sounds like you started with a pool sprint, then open water, and you moved up through the distances. And do you recommend that to new triathletes?
I would definitely say so. I think most people probably start off with they're familiar with swimming in a pool, but maybe not so much a lake, right? Because usually
Mhm.
when you're training, a pool is what's readily available more so than finding a lake to train in, right? Or
Mhm.
an ocean or whatever. And so for me, that was kind of the biggest hurdle. And so I actually did at least two, it might have been three, I can't remember now, but that were pool swims.
Mm.
And then once I got over kind of that hesitation and did a couple of open water swims, I then moved into that sort of area. But for me, it was a nice approach because kind of the way the distances step up is it just makes sense kind of to kind of
Mhm.
step up a little bit, especially when you get from an Olympic to a half. You think about the swim in an Olympic, it's only 1,500, and then a half is only 1.2 miles, right? So that's like another 500 yards. So
Right.
it's like, wow, well, okay. And I'm already a runner. So for me, the running part, that sort of increase didn't really make a big difference. So, but
Right.
anyway, yeah, I really like that approach. I think everybody's different though. So, I know some people jump right into the full Ironman distance. I feel like that's kind of a quick way to burn yourself out, perhaps. I feel like incrementally kind of getting yourself up to that point is probably a better way to go, at least from longevity with the sport and being able to remain a triathlete and not
Mm.
burn yourself out.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point for sure. So many of my listeners are actually aspiring athletes who juggle work and personal commitments. How do you manage to fit training into your already very hectic schedule? I'm sure as a full-time pharmacist, actually, you are a university administrator now and a family person.
yeah, that's a great question. And I've heard that the busier you are, the easier it is to find time to do things. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's kind of like the more you have to do, the more you can get it done. And so for me, it's really each week I deliberately sit down and look at my calendar for the week. I'm a very type A planner for sure. And
Mhm.
so that for me is the key to making sure that my workouts for the week will fit with family, with life. I do have an awesome coach, Dale Sanford with BPC, and he does a really fantastic job of asking me each week, hey, what's coming up? Do you have any, family events in the evenings or things like that we need to work your training around? So there's that flexibility there to be able to plan life and training. So yeah, I actually kind of plug in my workouts into my calendar each Monday, looking at it. And it's an appointment basically that's there on my calendar that I keep to myself. Or if it's, I have a group of friends that I run with early in the mornings during the week before work. So that's really helpful with the accountability factor and getting out of
Mhm.
bed to make it for a 7:15 run, or not a
Mhm.
7:15, a 5:15 a.m. run.
Mhm.
And so that's really what's kind of kept me going, and knowing that over time you're not going to necessarily wake up one day and be like, wow, I'm so fit. It's going, but over time, you're going to realize how much that consistency adds up
Mhm.
to big gains in fitness. And so even when I feel like I'm just spinning the hamster wheel, I tell myself, let's keep doing this. It's all going to make a difference. So
Mhm. Sure, definitely. So, can you describe a typical week of training that's like maybe a little bit of leading up to Ironman, what your typical week looked like? And you could even go backwards and outside of Ironman training, what a typical week would look like for you.
yeah. So I am a person that I tend to like having fewer two-a-days. So having a morning workout and an evening workout is a lot for me between work, family, just life commitments. And so I actually typically train a lot of times without even having a day off. And I know that sounds crazy to some, but for me, I would rather just have one early morning workout and then have the evening to spend with family, or, doing whatever I need to with the kids, like going to their events and that sort of thing. So having that time to make dinner, that kind of stuff in the evening. So for me, I typically, let's see, swim 2 to 3 times a week, biking 3 times a week, running usually 3 to 4 days a week, and then strength training in there, you know, 1 to maybe even 3 days, depending on what phase I'm at in my training. My weekly schedule though, and my Ironman build up was pretty consistent with usually on Monday evenings, I met with a group of friends to ride. Tuesday morning, I would do a run with friends in early in the morning, and then in the evening on Tuesdays, I would swim. So that is one of my two-a-days. Wednesdays, I would do strength training in the morning, and I'm trying to remember. Sometimes I'd bike in the evening on Wednesdays. Sometimes I'd just bike in the morning on Thursdays. It kind of depends on schedule. And if I wasn't biking in the morning on Thursdays and I'm running with friends that morning, and then swimming typically on Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon, um, might do another strength training session on Fridays, long run set or a long ride rather on Saturday, and long run on Sunday. And oftentimes on Sunday, that's when I get in another swim session. For whatever reason, I've just found that even after a long run, I really like going swimming. I don't know if it's just that zero gravity effect or whatever in the water. I
Mhm.
just think it's really relaxing and feels really nice and helps with my recovery from my long run too.
Mhm.
So my third swim each week was usually on Sunday. And here in Memphis, we have an open water swim too on Sundays. I know I've seen you there a lot.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes I'd do that and then do my long run. So
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we're very blessed to have that here, for sure. So you've competed in two Ironmans, which are definitely known to be grueling. Were there moments during those races when you felt like giving up, and how did you push through that?
oh, absolutely. In both races. Especially my first one. So my first one I did was Ironman Florida in 2021. And I heard from many folks that have done that race multiple times, and this was my first ever Ironman, right? It was actually my first ever ocean swim
Mm.
too. And I heard from many folks that had done that race multiple times over that that year was by far the worst year for the swim.
Oh, nice.
And the swim is not my strongest. As primarily a runner. I mean, I'm not terrible at the swim. I was hoping to maybe swim it in like an hour and a half, and I came out of it's a 2-loop swim course. So I came out of the first loop in Florida, looked at my watch and saw 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and
Yeah.
thought, oh boy, this is going to be fun. Can't believe I got to go do another one of those. And what I remember
Mhm.
while I was out there thinking, goodness gracious, I can see how people don't finish the swim. I've got to beat it by the cutoff. The cutoff is 2 hours and 20 minutes. And so I was just thinking, just keep going,
Uh-huh.
turn my arms over, anything I could do. The rip currents that day were just really
Oh, wow.
brutal. And anyway, made it out though, and I think it was 2 hours and 7 minutes, which
Mm.
in training, the longest I had ever swam was an hour and 20 minutes. So that was exhausting.
Yeah.
I didn't know how on earth I was going to get on a bike and ride 112 miles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but I did it. It took, about 2 hours or so on the bike to recover, but I just said, let's focus on what I can control. I can't control these weather
Mm.
conditions. I can't control what Mother Nature wants to throw my way,
Mm-hmm.
but I can focus on my nutrition. I can focus on my hydration. I can focus on making sure I don't start out too fast. So I just did that and was patient and eventually settled in and things got a lot better. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, with Wisconsin though, I mean those hills. I know you've done Wisconsin before too. And
Mm-hmm.
there are certainly several hills where I was like, "Good grief, is this ever going to end?"
For sure.
Um, and got a little bit worried at about mile 109 as I came around. It's one of those turns coming into the event center that's there
Uh-huh.
or whatever, you go through like around that stadium or whatever it is and
Right.
through the parking lot. And as I
You know
made
it's
that
coming.
turn, lost my back wheel a little bit. And
Oh.
I am at mile 109 and I just suddenly had this like flash image of me wrecking and
Oh
not.
no.
Luckily, I somehow maneuvered and kept the bike upright, and I was really super cautious the last few
The last
miles
few
going
miles.
in after that. But yeah, I certainly had that moment of, oh no.
Yeah, for sure. I thought you were going to say you knew you had to ride up the helix.
Oh, no, but the helix wasn't as bad as it looked. I
It's
mean,
not as bad as it looks, is it?
no,
I
it's
remember
really
that when I came up and you'd think after 112 miles, you'd have to ride that whole thing uphill. And I don't remember it being a problem at all. So,
no.
yeah, it's definitely, I
Like,
don't think as bad as it looks like it could be.
right. Yeah, and I was staying there at the hotel that kind of looks out at it too, so I got to look at it like every morning, leading up to it. Oh,
Yeah, probably running up the helix after the swim is definitely worse than riding up at the end of the bike.
absolutely. Way worse.
So, how does your family feel about your triathlete endeavors? I mean, do they join you in training or provide any unique forms of support?
Yeah. So my husband is actually a triathlete as well. We actually met through the running community here in Memphis. And so he does a lot of training with me. Our kids are now a bit older. They are 17 and 19 years old, so they're a little too cool to hang out with us and
I
train with
see.
us most days now. Hopefully they won't hear me saying all this and listen to this podcast, but that's okay. But our oldest is starting to get more into running now. He kind of
Oh.
got out of it, but he's starting to get a little bit more into it. So he'll do some runs with us. He still thinks that we're crazy though for doing an Ironman or
Mm.
any of that kind of stuff. But then our daughter, no, she doesn't really
Yeah.
come along with us. So I mean, if we were doing one at the beach or whatever, she might want to come because it's at the beach. But
Uh-huh. Sure.
but yeah, my husband and I do a lot of training together, which is really nice because that ends up, you spend so much time training. And so for
Hmm.
us, at least that ends up kind of being like, date day on the bike, right? Or
Right.
so we
Right.
get to spend some quality time together, but also do things that we love, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. My husband was my best training partner. So now he's not a triathlete, as you know. He's only rides the bicycle, but he definitely got me through both my Ironman trainings because he could go to the distance with me, and that's very, very helpful. And like you said, then you get to spend time together. So if you're out for a 6 hour bike ride, you're at least together.
Right.
So
You may be grumpy at each other at times, but it's all right.
yeah, we were just talking about because he's on his way to Chattanooga to announce a race up there. And so we were talking about when I was training and we went to Chattanooga and climbed to the mountain there. And
Um,
I gave him hell. I was so mad because I ran out of gears about a
uh,
third of the way up and I was so mad and he took the brunt of it. And I couldn't have done that with anybody else. But
oh my goodness.
so we have good memories. It wasn't a good moment at that time,
Yeah, at the time, right? But now you look
but
back at it.
it's a good
Remember when I
memory.
wanted to kill you?
Yeah.
Going up
Yeah.
that big hill.
So speaking of that, can you provide an example of any particularly challenging race or even a training session and how you overcame it? Because, we've all been there where there's been something that you just were ready to give up. It's too
Oh
hard.
yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you how many times, especially training through the summer this year and needing to do a
Mm.
brick run off the bike. And I'd get off the bike, and I think half of my runs on Strava are named Nope because it was just so dang
It
hot.
was so hot. Yeah. For those of you that are not in the Memphis area, it was extremely hot, just brutally hot this summer.
So
Um,
in cases like that, I mean, if it's a heat index of 119, those are the kind of cases where, yeah, is it really worth it for me to push through this and tough it
right.
out? Yeah, probably not, because then my long run tomorrow is going to possibly suffer because I'm going to be
Sure.
overheated today and everything. So I think that's kind of a key thing at thinking about, when you're trying to push through or overcome something, right, is also having that wherewithal to think about, oh, well, is this going to impact, if I push through this, is it going to impact my training, in a negative
Mm.
way
Yeah, that's a
otherwise?
really good point.
So,
Definitely.
but yeah, I'm trying to think of another good example of things pushing through. I mean, not in this training cycle, but a big, I guess, event or whatever for me was in 2016. I wrecked my bike. You might remember this when
Mm-hmm.
we had a few people on our team at the time that were injured. And so a dog had run out and literally knocked me off the bike and ended up, it happened so quick I couldn't react or anything. So I just landed straight on my elbow
Mm.
and ended up shattering my elbow, needing surgery, actually 3 surgeries over the course of a year.
Mm.
'Cause I had several complications. And so that's really challenging when you have, surgery. You can't even get in the pool because that surgical site, you can't get wet. And I had to do physical therapy to regain range of motion in that arm. So that
Mm.
was really grueling, 3 times a week, 9 months
Mm.
worth of it. And for me, that was a really challenging time because a lot of the usual, as I mentioned, triathlon and training and running even is my outlet. And
Mm-hmm.
so not being able to have that and also the fact that it did happen in the summer, so I wasn't upset about missing out on the hot summer. But once the weather got cooler in the fall, I was like, oh man, everybody's running and doing like the Cooper Young 4 miler race or all
Mm-hmm.
these great things that I couldn't do or had to miss out on. So, although that was obviously a really challenging time, I did learn some really great lessons that I think have made me a better athlete,
Mm.
and the athlete that I am today. So, through that, especially with doing the PT, working with a physical therapist 3 times a week, I really learned how important strength training is,
Mm.
trying to regain essentially all strength in my left arm from where it had been immobile for so long because of surgeries and whatnot. Um, that showed me how important it is in being consistent because as I was consistent, I could even see that progress and
Mm.
improving my range of motion, being able to improve my strength, going from not being able to hold myself up in a plank position anymore to eventually, being able to hold it for 5 seconds without collapsing, 10 seconds, 30 seconds,
Yeah.
And so I think all of that obviously was a very challenging time, but something I was able to really learn from and make myself into a stronger athlete because of it.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah, that must have been a very challenging time. I have been attacked by a dog and crashed and broken my helmet in half, but thankfully I did not break any body parts.
Yeah.
So, but it is not fun to fall off your bike because of a dog. Um, so, um, so as a pharmacist, you have a unique perspective on health and well-being. So, how do you ensure that you're getting the right nutrition and recovery, especially during your intensive training sessions?
Yeah, that's a really good point because I think nutrition and at least, not just nutrition during long workouts and stuff, but your nutrition every day is a big thing, kind of that fourth discipline in triathlon, so to speak, that gets overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I really just try to think about eating more plants, essentially. That's the way I look at it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, for instance, if I'm gonna make, let's say I'm making toast or making a grilled cheese or something, right? Okay, well, maybe instead of using butter, I'll swap that in for oil, like something that's plant-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe instead of doing a grilled cheese, maybe I'm gonna think about then maybe I'll just do a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something, right? So just thinking about like what are those kinds of swaps I can do, trying to swap in whole grains as much as I can. So, and I think because I'm a pharmacist, I kind of tend to nerd out about the newest, trends and things like that. And so I'm really curious and like to read about, nutritional things or trying out something new. I'm not hesitant to do if there's a new nutritional product that's come out and might help me out or might be easier to digest when I'm on the bike or on the run.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying that at least when I can in my training. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously nothing new on race day ever, but
Right. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think that that's really helpful with having that kind of science mindedness and being able to tease out like what what does the sports medicine world say for nutrition and those sorts of things is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, do you have any specific race day rituals or habits that help set the tone for your performance?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, the night before, I always set out all of my things. So I go through and think, what's everything I'm going to need for the swim, everything I'm going to need for the bike, everything I'm going to need for the run. Or in the case of Ironman, you got to have all this stuff planned out ahead of time because you got to
Right.
drop it the day before. So maybe the night before the night before. Um, but even so, even at Ironman races, I'm going through like all three disciplines kind of in my mind and thinking it through. The morning of, um, I always get up at least 3 hours before the race. I am very routined about what I eat before the race, what I hydrate with before the race. So I always have 1 cup of coffee because I need that caffeine to at least get
Mm-hmm.
me going. I always have, usually it's a bagel with peanut butter, and then I'll typically drink either Scratch or Gatorade, like a whole 16 to 24 ounces, depending on kind of what the weather and conditions are and maybe how well I had hydrated the day before too. So that gets me in a good 500 or 600 calories before, an Ironman race would begin, which is really, you've got to start with some fuel in the tank for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, as I'm waiting for the race to start, I start visualizing myself throughout the day, right? So visualizing, okay, my swim's gonna be nice, effortless, smooth, thinking about my form, right? And then I'm imagining myself in T1, picturing myself going through the bike, keeping things consistent, sticking with the plan, not going out too fast, those sorts of things. And then coming back in from the bike, starting out on T2 into the run and imagining, that as much as I can there. I also like to try to preview the course leading into the race, especially when it's an out of town race or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I can help with that visualization. So, and that's something that I learned from growing up. So I actually grew up a competitive dancer and then cheerleader. And that was something that we did a lot of, right? Is at competitions before we go out
Mm.
on stage, we would sit there and, our instructor might be playing our routine and we'd just sit there with our eyes closed and imagine that routine that we're nailing, all of the difficult moves or stunts in the case of cheerleading. And so that's something I've kind of taken with me into triathlon. So from, one, obviously dance and cheerleading is very different, but that visualization technique is still something that really helps a lot.
Yeah, I like that. I talk about that quite a bit on the podcast. Visualization, I think, is a very good and useful tool to
Absolutely. Yeah.
use. So, okay, so I know that there's one big one, big answer to this question, but are there any specific moments or milestones in your triathlon journey that really stand out?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know the one, of course, is qualifying for the World Championship at Ironman Wisconsin this year. So that one I feel like just vibrating from the excitement of, even though it was more than a month ago. So that's certainly one of the biggest ones. As a runner, one of my other big accomplishments is Boston qualifying. I've still not have yet to run Boston, but I did qualify. And my marathon PR is a 3:31, which is crazy because my very first marathon I ever did was a 4:44. So
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a bit of time to shave
it's
off.
not exactly, yeah, over an hour and nearly an hour and 15 minutes of time. That's a lot. So anyway, I think those are probably the two biggest ones. So, and hopefully,
Awesome.
with doing the World Championship, it'll be the very first year next year that the women are in Nice. So that's going to be an amazing experience to get to be part of that
Mhm.
inaugural women's only race in Nice is going to be amazing. So that's probably going to be number one on the list after that's all done.
For sure, for sure. So, looking forward to Nice in 2024. Now that you've qualified for Ironman World Championship, how are you feeling and what's your game plan? Well, we know how you're feeling. You've already said it multiple times, but what is your game plan?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. And I'm trying not to let that excitement lead to me doing anything stupid right now, right? So, right now I'm really just not training near the volume that I had been training, taking things a bit easier. I'm doing a marathon coming up in December, but don't have any not really giving myself a lot of pressure to do that. It's just since I enjoy endurance so much, just something to do that I have
Hmm.
fun doing. But for next year, so my biggest kind of thinking about Nice is the bike course. So Nice,
Mm.
although it's, on the coast, people typically think of the coast as being really flat. Well, Nice is not. It is, essentially a
Oh,
cliff right there at the beach edge, right? So there's even, I think, a
okay.
big castle and everything that's on top of that cliff. And so coming out of the water and starting the bike, you're immediately going into climbs.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. Not a whole lot of terrain around here in Memphis to do that kind of training.
Right.
So, probably going to go to areas, in the eastern part of the state where we have, the mountains and everything. So, like you were talking about earlier, and maybe Chattanooga or Knoxville areas
Hmm.
to do a bit more, mile, 2 mile, 3 mile long climbs. The longest climb in Nice, I think, is just over 6 miles. So that might be a whole hour of
Climbing.
grinding
That's,
it out.
yeah, that's great.
So,
You can go to Little Rock, Arkansas too.
yeah.
They've got a good, the 100 miler course. I
Yeah,
trained there quite a bit for Wisconsin.
yeah,
Get some hills in, but
yeah. I didn't think about Little Rock. Birmingham, so I did a race earlier this year, the Buster Britain Triathlon, just south of Birmingham, and it is in Oak Mountain State Park there,
oh.
and it is aptly named. was a hilly bike course. And it was an Olympic distance bike course that had, I want to say it was close to 2,000 feet of gain
Oh,
on the bike
nice.
course. Yeah, it was lovely. So might need to take a quick, that's only a 3 hour drive for us from Memphis. So could
Yeah.
be the weekend trip for training, but the
Yeah.
bike is definitely what I'm focused on. The run is pancake flat because it's along the promenade right there at the beach. And
Okay.
so I'm not as worried about that. And I also have the approach in an Ironman too that once you kind of make it to the run, I mean, you can crawl and finish. It'll be all right.
Right. Right, for sure. So I'm sure Dale's got your back on this and is gonna get you there. So are you gonna take any time off over the winter? Not really time off. We don't ever take time off, but
Yeah, what is
um
off season?
but reduce your training load and take a little bit of time to enjoy the holidays and not
Yeah.
such intense training.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even so I did Memphis half Ironman, that was
Hmm.
4 weeks after Wisconsin. Really just let my fitness from Wisconsin carry me into that race. Didn't do any build really into that or anything. But since Memphis, which was I guess about 2 weeks ago now, my training load's been less than half of what it had
Yeah.
been.
You're like, what do I do with all this time?
Yeah, I've been, reading some books and yeah, getting to spend time outside, like not doing training, like just for fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, it's been an adjustment for sure, but I've definitely taken advantage of that decreased training load and will continue to do so for a bit. So.
Yeah, for a bit. Though that kind of answers a little bit of my next question is like after a major event like Ironman, how do you let your body and mind recover from something like that? I know after both my Ironmans, I was like, what do I do?
I know I told Dale, I feel like a lost puppy. I'm like, what, like, what is this? I don't understand. Like, what do you mean I don't need to get up at 4 so I can go run before work? I don't, what?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I also try not to knee jerk register for another race or anything, right?
Uh,
Although I kind of had to, I guess, after
yeah,
Wisconsin.
you did.
But that's a whole year away from at least at that point in time.
Hmm.
So that's a little different. But yeah, I start thinking really I use that time too to start thinking about where do I want to go next? Like what do I want to do? I mean, obviously I've got one big race kind of spelled out for me in the next year, but what do I want to do leading into that? So as a runner, I've actually been working on running a marathon in all 50 states.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I am 19 states into that, and I only have Alabama left to run in the Southeast.
Mm.
So since I've got the endurance training kind of already coming off of
Yeah.
Wisconsin, I'm planning to do a marathon in December. So which is going to be wonderful to only do like 4 hours of an activity, right? Versus
Right.
12 plus hours in an Ironman. So,
Right. Right. So that actually answered my next question about what goals you have set. So we can move on to something else. So just the last couple of questions. As triathletes, we love technology. So, what kind of smartwatches, tracking apps, or other technology do you use to aid in your training? And do you ever take any no technology days and try to just go based on feel?
so, since I am coached and he looks at all of my data and numbers and that sort of thing, I don't necessarily take any no technology days. There are certainly days though where I literally don't even look at my watch while I'm running. So,
Mm.
or while I'm biking, I'm not even paying attention to what speed am I going, right? Like if it's just a go out, have fun, whatever, I'm not going to look at it. I'm still going to be recording it all. That way Dale has it and can look at
Mhm.
it and see, how things are going. But technology wise, so I have always used a Garmin Forerunner. Right
Hmm.
now I have the Garmin 945, but I think sadly it's on its last legs, but
Uh,
I'm gonna need a new one soon. It's been a really great watch though, but the battery's just not holding up like it used to. So I
yeah,
think it's just about done, but that's okay. It'll just be time for an upgrade.
right.
But I actually only recently, probably in the last year or so, started cycling with an actual GPS-based cyclocomputer.
Mm.
And so I used that. I have a Garmin. It's not the fancy one. It's whatever the cheapest is out there, but it does the job. It tells me what speed I'm going, how far I've gone, how long I've been going. That's all I need it to do. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the two key pieces of technology. And I also have power on my bike. So the
Mm.
power meter is built into my pedals on the bike, and that is super helpful, especially with the Memphis half Ironman a few weeks ago that we had and had terrible headwinds.
Mm.
And so having power and knowing kind of where I needed to be with my zones kept me from pushing too much power into that headwind going out.
Mm.
Even though I knew I was going slower than what I typically do, having ridden that course so many times before, I knew that I'm within my zone. I'm not gonna, overcook it on the bike so that I have a terrible run, right? So,
Hmm.
so for me, I think that's a key piece of technology is having a power meter,
Mm.
especially since the bike is such a big portion of
Right.
triathlon.
Right. Great. Well, to wrap up, as I said, a lot of my listeners are aspiring or beginner triathletes. So, for those that are just starting out, what are the top three pieces of advice you would give to an aspiring or beginner triathlete?
So the number one thing I would say is consistency is key. And that is coming from someone who goes through phases of better consistency and not so great consistency. When I'm in a phase of having good consistency and things lining up, things go a lot better. So, the fitness really starts to build. So consistency is key. I'd say my second one is find people to train with. Those people will motivate you. They will keep you accountable on the days where you're just like, gosh, I don't want to do this. They'll get you out the door and help you actually do the workout that maybe you would have otherwise skipped. And then my third piece of advice is to have fun. So I think
Mm.
it's really important to not get too, dialed into the numbers and I got to do the same power I did on my bike ride last time and just really focusing on all of those things. And I'm certainly guilty of doing that myself, but remembering to have fun. Don't always take it
Mm.
so seriously. I mean, we do this for fun, right? So
Right.
so remember to enjoy it. I tried to tell myself that quite often, especially during Ironman Wisconsin on that really long bike course. I was like, oh, just look at the beautiful cornfields. Like, how cool. And so anyway, just trying to have a lot of fun
Yeah.
while doing the races, while doing the training. So
Yeah. I love those answers. Those are good answers. So, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, Liz. I really do appreciate you taking the time to enlighten our listeners about your journey. I think it's just really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to watching you progress over the next year and then definitely race in France. That's exciting. I'm really proud of you. So thanks so much for coming on.
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've traversed today on the official Triathlete podcast. From the elegance of dance to the exhilarating world of triathlons, Liz Hall has shown us that with determination, passion, and resilience, we can reimagine our narratives and emerge stronger than ever. Her story is a vivid reminder that life's challenges, be they physical or mental, are just part of the course. And with the right mindset, we can not only overcome them, but also use them to propel us forward. A big thank you to Liz for sharing her inspiring journey and to all of you for tuning in. Whether you're on the track, in the water, or on your daily commute, remember every step, stroke, or pedal can be a dance of its own. Until next time, this is the official triathlete signing off, encouraging you to find your rhythm, embrace your journey, and keep pushing forward. Talk to you next time. Bye. That's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. I want to get to know you, so head over to trynursecoaching.com and sign up for a free 30-minute goal-setting session. Love the show? I'd be forever grateful if you left a review and shared the podcast with your friends. And remember, do things that are hard.